Deacon John Wilson, Education Enrichment Director for West Angeles Church, here to update you on the latest on the, I don't know what I should call it. I think it's COVID-19 related legislation. Let me give you a little background. The legislation that's currently in Sacramento, I should say, is not in Congress, I don't think at all. But there's some people in California who want to go back to some of the lockdowns permanently. The things we did during COVID, they want to do them permanently. And I don't know all the motivations for it. Some of it's fear. As I said in another video recently, that the current two, now three, I guess, variants, BA1, BA2, and XE, are all mild manifestations of COVID in the upper respiratory tract. They're not really lung type diseases. They're not nearly as deadly or severe. Most times it's just a bad cold. Even it turns out statistically, we should protect our elderly. They should be careful, but they don't seem to have nearly as high of a death rate, not even nearly as we did under Delta and the other two variants. So I'd have to say that in that respect, we're moving toward an endemic. I didn't check the number of cases, but it's irrelevant since it's not a severe malady at this point. So over time, every week we go by here, we get more and more back to normal. But there's some people that want to keep it there a little longer. And like I said, it may be some political reasons. The governor still has his emergency powers, although I don't see why he's got those. There's continuing calls to, after 30 days, let those drop. In fact, there's legislation for that. I don't totally understand why we're still under emergency right now. But anyway, let me go over these current laws that are up there in the assembly in Sacramento right now that you should be concerned about. So here we go here. Let me share my screen to show those to you. Current new COVID-19 laws under consideration in California. And some of these will surprise you because the media, is just not covering the story. Not at all. So I guess you shouldn't be surprised that, this stuff is going on and you don't know it. But SB 871, the first one, would mandate, some of these I covered a few weeks ago, but there's more now. And one was stalled and stopped. I can't remember which one, but these are the ones that are open now. Senate Bill 871 would mandate COVID-19 vaccine for all children and all kids for school. This is the one I'm really watching close. Those for people who feel that COVID-19. Now, again, as I said last time, some of these you may go for, but each person needs to ask, is it too far? Is the legislation too far for me to accept? And if it is, you should give your congressperson a call, your assembly person, and your senator a call. I would give the assembly and the senator a call. I do that on issues. It takes about maybe 10 minutes a day, keep their number on speed dial. You want to call their office and tell their people what you think about these bills. But I'll mention that again at the end. SB 871 would mandate COVID-19 vaccine for all kids, for children, kids for school, or in childcare. So if you're a parent that doesn't want to have your student get the vaccine, some of you have already done it, but there are many others who are following the data on this who are just not sure about it for their child. Now, a lot of people say, well, it should be just like any other vaccine. But number one, it's not nearly as deadly as the others that they are vaccinated for, number one. Number two, in some cases, all three of the vaccines are not authorized, but yet there is in California here, they may go ahead and authorize Moderna. And a lot of you don't feel that's authorized by the government yet. I think there is an authorization up to a certain age, but this legislation says 12 to 17, and it says all kids, and it goes 5 to 17, and that includes the very young children that a lot of you are opposed to having that done with. And I suppose if a child is in childcare who's 4, they'd have to get the vaccine. Again, you may have no problem with this, but let's look at some of these other ones. 866, I almost read it here a minute ago. It would eliminate parental consent for kids that are 12 to 17. So if you have a 12-year-old, they can consent to get the COVID-19 vaccine and you're not even involved. I mean, I don't know about you, but I want to be involved in if my children are getting a vaccine like this, even if I'm in favor of it. I want to be told. If not, to check for the side effects when they get home. And there are side effects in 1 out of 1,300 youth. I think it's either 1 out of 1,300 or something like that. There aren't serious side effects. The serious ones are still possible. Serious meaning death and things like that. I mean, there's some that require them to go to a doctor. But it's not terribly common, but you ought to be made aware that your child is taking that. Again, if you don't have any trouble with these 2 Senate bills for your child, I wouldn't worry about protesting it. But I think I would, and I'm just here to inform you what's going on, probably in more of an enrichment role. Although these do have a relationship to school, because this is where they're going to vaccinate the kids in this case, and this is where the mandates in the first case are more important. SBA 1479 will require schools to continue COVID testing and to create new testing plans. So there's some people that want to keep us in this footing, like we're checking for a very deadly disease. SB 1018 will require online platforms to discuss how health information is distributed to users. I don't know the impact of that. Seems like it's okay. I don't know. I don't have an opinion either way. But you need to know this is going to go through the legislature. SB 1018, I just covered that. SB 1464 would require the police like in Australia, to enforce lockdowns and mask mandates. So that means finding and arresting people. Again, for a virus that's not deadly. And the mask mandates have been pulled in the state right now. So it's just saying if they come back on, the police can enforce it. The sheriff's already said he's got enough problem dealing with all the budget cuts and doesn't have enough officers or sheriffs, deputy sheriffs, to start arresting people and passing out tickets. Remember, this is to enforce any lockdown we might have. So there's still people who feel that if the virus spikes, that we should have a lockdown, I guess. And if we do, they want the police to enforce it. But again, in lockdowns, we lock down healthy people, and it's coming out to be that maybe that's not the way we should have gone. But nevertheless, this bill says we're going to lock down healthy people. It sounds like what the Australians did recently and got into a lot of civil rights issues with its people. AB 1993 will require, we talked about this one before, will require all employers to maintain a COVID vaccine for employees and independent contractors. So this is the one where any employer will have to vaccinate their employees and their contractors. So everybody in the state will be vaccinated. Again, factor in, this is no longer a serious infection. I know 20 or 30 people who had the recent COVID strain, and they barely were that sick for a day or so. There wasn't much to it. The toughest case I heard was somebody lost their taste for about a week, but I've had that happen with colds. When I've gotten colds, I lose my sense of taste, really super bad cold. And that's why some people don't feel like they want to eat when they have a cold. And all of us have had the flu when we've been out real bad a couple of days. I hadn't had it happen to me lately, but I know about it. In fact, while my mind is on, maybe the COVID-19 vaccine needs to become like the flu vaccine, something we can take if we feel we need it. And that's not what this says. It says mandate, that everybody who's employing people have to mandate it. Would provide greater access and less privacy for the California immunization database. So anybody could query it. An employee could query it. Employer could query the database. The database is going to be right out in the open. This is the one I don't understand the most, how it's not a violation of HIPAA, which is that federal agreement that your records are personal, the portability protection, whatever it is, that it belongs to you. I just feel like AB 1797 is a violation of federal law. And there's a couple other these I think might be violating federal law, but let's just deal with this one, that I think it's going to violate the privacy laws for our health information. That's AB 1797. Again, copy these down, and you need to make calls if these bother you. And I'll bet you some or all of these bother a lot of you. AB 2098, the last one on the list, would subject doctors to disciplinary conduct for sharing COVID-19, quote, misinformation. So if they don't feel a doctor is right and a doctor publishes something, I guess they can take away his license. Remember, there was a lot of good science a year ago that was being blocked from the internet that is now found to be true. Like we were told a year ago, there's no natural immunity. But that's sure wrong now. My doctor told me there wasn't either. But he recently reversed that. So there is natural immunity. We think it's up to a year, but we don't really know how long it is. But there is natural immunity. So the next time you get it, it's not as bad. So I don't know, what misinformation is. Some forms of treatment that people have taken successfully for COVID. If doctors write or talk about it, they could lose their license, I guess. And the whole idea of a doctor-patient relationship, that a doctor can prescribe off-label medications for his patient. My doctor has done it with me with a medication recently. It's a medication that's purposed for something else. He'll think it should work for me. And you know what? He was right. So I don't understand why doctors have to be disciplined for what someone else will call misinformation, not disinformation. Misinformation means that it doesn't agree with what someone else says. But a lot of the science that was thrown around during the pandemic was later proven to be wrong. There was the science of the vaccines, that they were going to prevent COVID, and that was certainly not true. All right, well, I just want to advise you on these legislations. If you think any of them go too far, I think you should call or write your congressperson's office. You can write them an email, I suppose, if they publish that online, this email address. But call their office. Those always have more impact. And I do that when I see some legislation that I don't agree with. I've already written and called them about most of these. God bless you. Thank you very much. Comment below if you like this video. You can subscribe, click like, and you'll find out what's going on by the subscribe you would have clicked. Thank you much. Bye-bye now.